Well, good afternoon, everyone. The board continues to have and will likely be the main topic of conversation this month also, has had very long and continuous debate about the type of buses PSTA should buy to replace the oldest buses in our fleet that we have to constantly keep refurbishing and maintaining a reliable fleet. And there are folks that are strongly advocating for the very environmentally friendly all-electric bus, battery-powered buses. Those are obviously very good for the environment because they use electricity, batteries to run instead of diesel fuel, but they are substantially more expensive to buy. And PSA wouldn't be able to buy as many as we need. And then there are some folks that don't think we should buy those. We should buy the cheapest possible kind of bus possible. Diesel or smaller or whatever. So we're going to have that debate continue on, hopefully with a resolution this month as our main action item coming up next week. So stay tuned for that. But we had that discussion at the meeting.
That's true.
As well. Those were pretty much the main items. We got an update that you're going to hear today, finally, and make a recommendation on about our service changes, upcoming service changes coming this fall.
Okay, super. Thanks, Brad. So our first action item is the May 17th meeting minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes prior to the meeting? Any edits or recommended changes? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second? GW and Elizabeth. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great. Our first presentation, as Brad said, is Ms. Cassandra Borchers. Hi, who's standing back there on the October service agreement.
Ooh, somebody put some animation in there.
So we've talked about some of the service improvements before at the last meeting, but this time it is going to be an action item to the board to approve these service changes. So we have gone out for a series of public workshops, which we reported to you on last time, and now we've had one public hearing, and we will have a second public hearing on Saturday in St. Petersburg. So we're really giving people an opportunity to come out and talk to us. But I'll tell you that overall, the comments are pretty gentle. People are either pleased with some of the changes or just okay with some of the changes. So what I'd like to show you today is the presentation that we gave at the public hearing last week. Actually, Bob gave it, so probably better than I can. But what we did was group the changes so that you can start to see how there's continued coverage across the county. So as you know, we've been at this a long time. We've looked at ways to streamline the service starting back in 2013. And in 2015, we committed to making sure that we did that service redesign in a way that was customer focused. So we've had several changes planned, past and future, for the system. We started out with some lower performing routes, then successfully changed the hub system in downtown St. Petersburg to a grid system, and now we're turning our attention to the rest of the county. Half of the improvements for the rest of the routes will be done in October of this year, and the other half will be done in February. So for the October service changes, we've really focused on North County and some mid-county routes. That's not to say that we won't come back and look at some other incremental improvements, because we'll do that as well. So by 2017, we're starting to put in action these principles that we've been talking about for a while. And specifically is looking at some of the efficiencies that we will gain in the service changes, we will put back into the system. So with some later night service on some routes, in some cases, frequency where we can or where we have to. But it's about doing the best that we can with what we have, because these changes that we're making are budget neutral. So just to get started, we have the first group, the 61, the 62, and the Dunedin and Palm Harbor connector. And what I'd like to point out to you specifically is that the change in the 62, and we've talked about this before in this group, because this is a change for Safety Harbor in terms of its service, but I think it's good overall good for the system. So the 62 would no longer loop around to Safety Harbor, then to Countryside, then to Blue Ranch, then back to Countryside. Instead, we're going to take the Dunedin Palm Harbor connector to Safety Harbor and expand the coverage area for the deviation so that nobody is left without a ride. The 62 will go straight up to Countryside and then to Blue Ranch. We'll also eliminate for the 61 the Michigan Loop and take that straight over to Countryside. For the 66, the Jolly Trolley and the Oldsmar Tampa connector, we've talked about this before. We are going to take the 66 and split it at downtown. So the southern half will be the new 65. The northern half of the 66 will become a limited express route. And so we'll have 3 trips in the morning, 3 trips in the evening. We'll be focused on commuters and the Clearwater Fundamental School. The rest of the hours from the 66 will then go into the Jolly Trolley, and we will have 7-day-a-week Jolly Trolley service. One other change that we've made for this is that service will no longer end at Island Estates, but go all the way to the beach. This will be a 1-seat ride for people all the way from Tarpon Springs to the beach. In Mid-County, we're also looking at changing some things and splitting some routes. And these splits are specific to make sure that we stay on time. And so we're isolating some of the issues that we're having in staying on time for those very, very long routes. So just looking at, we talked about the 65, the 66. So this new 65 will now meet the 74 at Seminole Mall. And the 74 will continue over to Gateway. The remainder of the 74 will be the new 16. All of those will still operate at 30-minute service. There's no change in the service there. The 59, which is now a very long route, will now meet the new 4 out here at the PSTA administration lay-by. So just right out here. And what this does is it allows us to not only stay on time, but in this section of the 59, we'll increase the frequency to be 15-minute service. So now meet up with the 4, and in order to have those timed right, they have to have the same frequency. And so we're going to improve that section. The new 9, because there's the 16 and the 4 available, we're going to drop the frequency on that route. On the new 9, but again, this is what allows us to put frequency in other places when we move it around based on what kind of coverage is there and what kind of usage is there. As I mentioned, the 4 will be streamlined, and the Goodwill Loop will now be done by the new 16. Yes.
Do you have a map for the 9?
A map for the.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Just for the 9?
Well, I'm just saying that.
Well, the 9
I
will
don't
go,
see the 9 on.
Yeah, the 9 will go from downtown to Gateway Mall.
On King?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Does that do anything with the frequency of the 59? Or is it
So the east-west portion of the 59 will, on Homerton, will be 15-minute service. That'll be improved, and will reduce the service on that section of MLK. So you'll have 30-minute service on 16th, 60-minute service on MLK, and then 15-minute service on 4th Street.
I'm just curious, but did you consider extending the 9 south of downtown, or was it just, I know, or just out of curiosity, since you're shortening it up top, just having it run the length of the street in the city?
No, we didn't. Because a lot of that is taken care of by other routes.
Right.
There's a lot of routes on the south side. We think that people are going to the place. What we did was we looked at the transfer affinities. Before we made any changes, we looked at the data and how people were using the service, and then made sure that we had the right coverage.
Senator?
Yes.
Where did the 9s start? You said downtown.
Yeah, so the 9 will start at the south end of downtown. I think that's like 4th Avenue, and then go up MLK.
Okay.
Gateway.
From 59,
Yeah.
First Avenue North and 6th Street would be the exact, yeah, First Avenue North and 6th Street would be the.
6th Street south.
Where it would start from the north.
So the 18, the 19, and the 67. The 67 will stay the same. We saw, didn't see a reason to change that too much. We will have some increased service to Nielsen, so it will serve, all trips will serve the Nielsen loop as opposed to just intermittent service. But the routing doesn't change. We've streamlined the 18 to take out some of the deviations from Heritage Lake, Heritage Apartments, but it will remain on Seminole Boulevard. The 19 is going to be split at the new Largo Transit Center, and that allows, again, to keep on time. We don't anticipate any frequency changes, but the south end will be the new 34. The north end will stay as the 19, but then it will also continue as it reaches Tarpon and Huey's. Will continue over to Alt 19 to make that east-west connection. So that connection between Alt 19 and US 19 is currently made by the 66. And with the changes on the 66, we wanted to make sure that you could still get over to Alt 19. But this will actually be better service to Tarpon Springs along using the new 19.
Can we go back to the 66, because I'm confused all about the 66. So you're cutting out the loop that typically services North Patricia now? Up to Main Street on the 66th and moving that over
Yes,
to the Jolly Trolley
moving
track?
that over, so Patricia will be served by looking at the 61, but we are moving over the 61, but the 61 moves from Douglas to Patricia.
Oh, that was the piece I missed, okay. Because that would be a shame to lose service altogether. That was the piece I missed, that you were moving 61.
So we've been doing a lot of looking at how to serve downtown Dunedin. And we talked to the chamber this morning about what they'd like to see, looking at some new pedestrian connections and working with the city, because there's that debate of whether we serve Douglas or we go on Edgewater, and we can't do both because of the streets. They're too narrow to take a bus down and back. And so for now, we're leaving the recommendation to stay on Edgewater in order to capture all of Main Street.
And Douglas is still getting served in front of the Hale Center and the ball stadium and all of that?
No. Yes. So it's a debate that we're still have comments, I would love to take them to the board about that too.
I made my comments at the town hall.
Yes, you did.
It's a serious portion of the population that you're not serving that don't necessarily have access to a park, the seniors. Not to mention not getting people to the baseball stadium, which is already a challenge.
That kind of routing change we can continue to discuss. The big changes would be, that would be a relatively minor change in the grand scheme of the system change. So these are the comments that we received so far. During our public hearing, we received lots of comments about keeping the 18 and 59 in Largo Mall. We have had a proposal to put them on the outside of the mall for timing and for safety. But we're looking into that to see if we continue to get comments about that, how we can accommodate at least one of those buses into the mall.
Have you considered like a lay-by station like you did at the Walmart, right in the center of the Largo Mall, so the buses don't have to go all the way through?
We've looked at some other options, so they don't have to. So if we built our own
Right.
layover spot, what would that look like, and would it be enough connectivity for people for what they're looking for to be into the mall? So it becomes sort of an access issue versus a timing issue. So where the stop is right now, it's part of a building. You know, you're undercover. It's kind of a nice place to wait, really.
By the Target.
Yeah. So you're sort of in the center of everything.
Yeah, right.
So I think we're still having that debate. We're getting a lot of comments about staying in the mall. So if you have comments about that too, we'd love to hear them here. So it's about if we're outside the mall, we stay on time better. It's a little bit harder for people who have the challenge to get around across the streets instead of being in the mall. So we've looked at can we do it on different corners? But I think the jury is still sort of out. I think we still have a couple of these things that are kind of still questions. So what do you think?
I was just thinking that maybe like one of those little connector buses could go from 18 or from Seminole into the mall and make the loop around where the stores are, and then the 59 too.
And we need to circulate in there.
Yeah. I'll have to pay for it, so.
Any other comments? So a comment about Douglas and a comment about the mall.
A couple of things I wanted to check. Again, we're looking at the 66, with that being served by the Jolly Trolley.
Yes.
I keep coming back to the question, and I know, Brad and I've talked about this too, is that when I took the one kind of Jolly Trolley from Dunedin, or actually from Safety Harbor up to Countryside Mall, the handicapped access to those Jolly Trolleys is from the back. The passengers come from the side, but the ambulatory passengers do,
right.
but the people in wheelchairs have to get in the back. That's crazy. And so I don't know if the replacement for the 66 is the same kind of thing where people are going to have to get dropped off on A19 or what, those have to be safe access into the bus from the side entrance.
I mentioned that to Rosemary, and I think the majority of her fleet does have the wheelchair access at the door.
At the side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at the main door, so it's just.
Because that was pretty alarming.
As yes.
Just dump you off the back of the street.
Oh, right by Countryside Mall, but yeah.
Right in the road.
Yeah.
In the road, yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, he was trying to be nice, but the fact is there was really no other place that he could drop me off. So yeah, that was enlightening. And then the other question I have is, I know I asked this before, but I'm not sure I paid attention correctly. The Oldsmar Tampa connector. Now you've moved that from Countryside Boulevard.
Yes.
over to 19. And again,
To Belcher, yes, to Belcher.
to Belcher, okay. Because, again, I still keep, there's nothing really serving the Countryside Library now and the rec center there. I mean, I guess it's a divergence for the part that's by the mall.
We looked at the boardings on this route and made some adjustments to the service area, so your deviation area is slightly bigger. In order to accommodate, we found that there were some riders at the south end of Countryside Boulevard, and that's why we sort of made sure that that deviation area was extended up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've used that bus to also go to like the Countryside Country Club. There was a meeting there, and I don't know if that's still part of the deviation for that one too.
You know where Countryside Country Club is?
It's a couple blocks up Countryside Boulevard from where the entrance to the library is. But it's a little distance up there. I mean, it's not a quarter mile or maybe a half mile up.
I think, so this would be accommodated there.
It should
Well,
be.
yeah,
This would be accommodated.
Okay, yeah, because those are some of them. All right.
But yes, what we found was that people were getting on here,
Yes,
but there wasn't much going on here.
yes, yeah.
So coming around to Belcher this way streamlines the route and starts to serve some other things.
Up in the north,
Yes.
yeah. And that's right, as long as the divergence allows for those things, especially the library, then that.
So, as I mentioned, we've had a series of public meetings. We'll have our last public hearing on Saturday, comments, and then we are still planning a very robust public engagement process, public information, after the decision is made before the actual service changes. So Bob and the team will be very busy going out with our Yellow Vest Brigade, as we did in Williams Park. So here's just an overview of the system and the system changes. And when you look at it as a whole, you see that the coverage is vastly the same. We're just doing it in a different way. We'll take your comments to the board. This is an action item. So I think we're asking for your concurrence to make these changes in October.
So you need a motion to accept the, okay. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we accept the proposed changes, service improvements that Cassandra just presented.
I second it.
Super. Any more discussion, any questions? Okay. And we're accepting these exactly as posted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay, we are moving on to Henry Lukaszyk's presentation on the wheelchair restraint system.
I've done some research on that.
Okay. I was like, Elizabeth, are you okay?
Yeah.
And you were like,
No.
I'm not quite sure how I would freak out, but that was an
Restrain us.
Yeah,
They're saying they're going to restrain us so we don't misbehave.
And they know all about it.
I know, they know about me. I know.
We
So I like put
oh.
the chair so it'll make
And
sense.
while we're switching that over, I was remiss in not introducing our newest member. We have with us Richard McDaniel. Richard, welcome. Thank you for serving with us. I hope you are better informed about the PSTA and will give us your feedback. We welcome the feedback. That's what we're all here for. So appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I should have been better, not realizing there was someone new. This is Brad Miller, the CEO of the PSTA. I just kind of went, take it away, Brad. So, but you'll get to know people. The staff, I have to tell you, is excellent here. So anytime you have feedback outside of the committee, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to Brad or James or Cassandra, and if they aren't the right people to speak to, they'll be able to direct you to who it is. So our feedback's taken very seriously here at the PSTA. So welcome and
Great,
thank you
thank
for
you.
serving. Would you like to tell us a little bit about you and how you got here?
I'm a graduate student at USF St. Pete, saw an opening, and so applied for it. St. Pete native, been riding the bus since the 90s probably, or before.
Super.
That's about it.
What's your degree?
Florida Studies.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you. All right. All about restraining the wheelchair people?
Not for the people in the chairs?
Sure. Unfortunately, our maintenance director is AWOL.
I was gonna say,
and,
that's
not
what
here,
I
so
think.
I'm going to call our deputy maintenance director, our CFO, Debbie Reed.
Yeah, right.
Just kidding.
I know nothing about wrenches or anything else, but I do know about the procurement.
Good.
This was, we had applied for a grant, and we were very successful in getting some funding for wheelchair securement for our buses. And this is going to be, we actually reached out to a number of vendors, and we were able to get a good quote from Gillig and another company called Provost. And we are going to be moving ahead with Gillig, and this is to upgrade only 46 of our buses, is what the grant could handle. So every year we try to reach out and try to do a little bit more. So, but this will be a replacement of that, and it's for a contract not to exceed $242,000, and we'll be able to accomplish that this fiscal year. So is Henry going to be coming for the
He's
detail
coming.
side?
Yes, he will be here tomorrow.
That's good.
Some of you may be familiar, well, Henry will be able to describe, so you may be familiar, but we have 210 buses in the PSTA fleet, and 46 of them from the vintage of 2006. So their number starts with a 2 and a 6. Blue regular PSTA buses have a specific kind of wheelchair restraint system in the front that has been somewhat problematic in properly tying down, securing wheelchairs. In addition, it had these seats that we had to remove from the buses or not allow anybody to sit in because we had a number of people, they were the first seats on the bus that faced the front. Because this wheelchair restraint system didn't have a partition or something to stop someone, we had a number of people fall, and when the bus came to an intersection, they fell forward into someone who was in a wheelchair and hurt themselves, and then and filed claims. So these buses don't have any forward-facing seats. Welcome, Henry, to explain better than I have, but this will be a lot better.
I just gave a little bit on the procurement, so the rest is up to you.
Apologies, member of the track committee. What happens when Microsoft Outlook thinks it's the wrong day?
Oh, no.
So today,
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I had this meeting on my calendar for tomorrow.
Well, you'll hopefully you'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so thank you, Brad and Debbie, for quickly filling in for me, and that is not the right one. Okay. This will be the same. The PowerPoint is the same. This is what we're going to present to the Finance Committee tomorrow. Okay. So how basically is a grant from FDOT, Federal Department of Transportation, under the 5310 Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities and Capital Assistance Program. We were successfully awarded the money. The basis of the application was to go ahead and in all of our 2006 model transit buses, a total of 46 of them, and if if you've ridden on them, you're kind of familiar with the wheelchair securement areas, which also double as flip-up seats. That's what we call them when they're not needed for securing mobility devices. And you've probably always wondered what this is, why we never use that seat. As you can see on a lot of those, there's a sign that says these seats are not available for use. The answer to that question is because there was, back in 2006, this is a barrier. There was never a barrier here installed, nor was it required. Nowadays, when you drive on some of our newer buses, you will see a barrier here and a barrier here. Also, after almost 10 years of being flipped up and flipped down, these seats are getting worn out, or have worn out. So that was the basis of our application, to go ahead and replace in all 2006 model buses, all 46 of them, replace the barriers and replace the flip-up seats, and also replace all of the mobility securement devices as well. So what will that look like by the end of 2016, possibly early 2017? This is what it'll look like. And this probably looks familiar because this is what it looks like on our new 2015 model buses and also our 2016s that have yet to be delivered here. You will notice that each side has a barrier, brand new flip-up seats, brand new securements, both sides. But you'll also notice something new. So what used to be on the passenger side of the bus was always 3 seats, but we've also gone ahead and we're going to put 3 seats on the driver, right behind the driver as well. So in reality, what we're getting for this project is an entirely brand new area for securements for mobility devices, upgraded barriers, and we're also adding 1 additional seat to the bus that was not there before. We did our usual procurement, sent it out for competitive bid. We received 2 responses, and Gillig LLC responded as the lowest cost, most responsive bid, and we are recommending that that award be made. I mentioned earlier that this was a grant that we were successful in obtaining assistance from the Federal Florida Department of Transportation. So basically, PSTA's share of the entire cost of the project, the entire cost of the project was $242,000. PSTA's local share will only be 10%, which equates to about $24,200. The rest will be covered by both federal and state grants. So our recommendation is to award, and I'll be happy to take any questions from the committee. I apologize for being late.
It's okay, it happens. Elizabeth?
That blank seat, that used to be a blank spot, now is a 3rd seat on the driver's side. Used to be very handy for strollers and walkers and.
Yeah,
and-
I've noticed that too.
Yes.
I've noticed that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that could be one comment as well.
That's just an observation. Gonna end up on their lap, which I do anyway. Take my groceries on my lap.
I just see a lot of our seniors getting on the bus with those
Rolling grocery
metal
carts.
grocery carts. And that's usually where that are full. I mean, it wouldn't even be an option for them to hold everything. And they end up pulling those carts into that empty space. But again, it's an observation, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, is it too late to change any of that to have those be still be a 2-seat? configuration?
It's a little late now. I can say, and I won't speak operationally for Jeff in the transportation department, but as you know, if these seats aren't being used, you know, it could certainly be flipped up for just that purpose. Also, I don't have a very good picture of it here, but as you know, up here on the right-hand side, where you see the trash cans that are mounted, there is some additional space there to put stuff on top of that wheel well. As kind of a package tray. It is enclosed by these railings that you see here. So there is some space.
Well, that's an interesting point that the seats could be flipped up if that was something that was desired to.
Completely unrelated to the actual equipment, but my care ride driver coming over today was talking with me about the fact that, do we have any grounds for expecting that the wheelchairs and the scooters and stuff that people ride our buses with meet any specific kinds of criteria to be appropriately attached? Because, you know, I happen to have excellent, you know, latches on mine, but the stories that the drivers have told me of the things they have to try to do to get, you know, we have good attachment devices, but our riders don't have good things to attach them to.
Great question. Again, I know if Jeff and Mike certainly have anything to add, but what we experience, what we have seen in the maintenance department itself, which is in terms of a standard for a mobility device, unfortunately the answer is no. There is not. There is nothing that I believe requires any mobility device to have any sort of permanent latches or eyes or hooks to help with that. Also, manufacturers of mobility devices, they really kind of use it up to the user of that mobility device to tell them what they want on it and what they're going to use it for. For example, if that person never is ever going to ride a bus or a care ride van, then you probably wouldn't spend the extra money to have those reinforced. I know that our operators, of course Jeff jumped in, our operators do the absolute best to secure whatever device is properly, securely, tightly as best as they can, all the while not trying to damage the mobility device in the process, which can happen, especially around some of the bases of some of these devices that have plastic covers or caps. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about when they were talking about that little space there on the bus. I've seen women, you know, it's like absolutely go through heck when it's like they don't have a collapsible baby chairs to shove under the seat, and so you know it's like a lot of times they will put the baby carriage up there, and so I'm wondering. Of course, I've seen baby carriages in an empty seat too, you know, but I'm just wondering how we're gonna, you know, it's like negotiate that need for an extra space, you know, the grocery carts and the baby carriages, you know, and the grocery carts can't go under the, you know, so that's going to be a challenge.
Understood.
My experience has been that when those grocery carts and folded up baby things get in there, put in there, they roll around a lot. So they fly around a lot of times and collapse. On the back of by the window there's a space. There may be like a 4-foot bar that would have a cargo net that could be brought out and dropped over whatever was put there to keep it from moving around. That's an idea.
Certainly check to see if any other transit authorities is doing that. I can also send out an email to colleagues at other authorities across the country. This is not the only place that has shopping carts and strollers. So let me find out what other creative methods other authorities are doing at this moment in time, and I will definitely come back to the committee and let you know what I find out.
I've seen them roll around quite a bit.
Well, it's tough. I've seen moms take their kids, and the important thing is to hang on to the kid.
Right.
And when the cart goes rolling, that's way less important, so you're right. Having some sort of restraint system just for the carts and the strollers would be great.
In our new, unbelievably highly enforced rider code of conduct, right? One of the rules of the road is that you must fold up your stroller.
We'd like you to keep it under control.
Yeah. I did see the brochures out in the bus racks for the rules of the road too. Good job. Speaking of that, Henry, thank you. We appreciate it. GW and
I mean, in a perfect world, you'd be able to pull up your stroller because you would have a state-of-the-art stroller that you could pull up. A lot of these women get their strollers from Goodwill, or you can get it from, it's like wherever, and the strollers are outdated and they don't have the capability of holding them. So, it's like, who do we see? It's like in those situations, particularly in my area.
Well, about a month ago when I was riding the bus home one day, there were 3 people in those front seats there on my bus that all 3 of them were senior folks. They had walkers, which don't fold up, and it was like a maze of metal bars that were just like, they were having this little argument because they had kind of gotten like stuck together, and my bus stop was coming up, and I kept thinking, how am I going to get through this? So I went out the back door. They continued to have a problem because they were like hooked together.
Or you could have just told them who you are.
Yeah. You noticed he said he went out the back door. Yeah, I was like,
I did tell who I was on one of the routes, and then the bus operator was doing a great job, but he got so flustered that he went the wrong way. And the passengers at first got mad, but they realized that it was not the driver's fault, it was my fault. So then I stopped telling them.
Did you go out the back door then too?
Yes. I stopped announcing who I was.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Anybody else? Elizabeth, you said you've done some research on this. Do you have any further comment?
They're just improving and upgrading, and that's what we discovered. Some of the belts, restraints have worn out, and they don't retract like they're supposed to. And that's just part of, and they all know, because I've talked to, I came out here, and we did a demonstration, and I hooked up the chair, and we talked about it, and what happens when we come to an intersection, and if I'm not latched properly, what happens, and the drivers love my chair, and I always laugh. Okay, my eyes are nice too, but if you like my chair, that's good.
That's funny.
So, because they've got this good hardware.
Yeah.
They love it. They love it. So they don't want to go back to,
Hey. No, but it's true, but the manual chairs don't have as good a
well, then
traction.
the little scooters, the little,
Well, that was what
tricycle
the care ride driver was saying. The 3-wheel
Yes.
scooters are so unstable, and you have to try to lash underneath
Yes,
the
I
front
know.
wheel. It's like you almost want to be able to ban the 3-wheel scooters from the driver's standpoint, but I don't think you can.
so it's just upgrading the health of the latches. That's what we discovered.
Yeah. I really don't think there's I think there's regulations against PSTA or transit systems from putting any restrictions though on it. That's why they just kind of try to do your best.
Henry, this is listed as an action item. What, do you need endorsement from us on something in particular? It sounds like the grant's already gone through, so.
Tomorrow we'll go to the department, so I'm just looking for
Approval of,
Track.
yeah. Okay. Somebody want to make a motion for endorsing the current plan for the
Make a motion that we endorse the plan.
Super. Second?
I'll second it.
All right, Kim seconded. Everybody seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Super.
Thank you again, I apologize for racing.
Thanks for doing this so quickly, Henry.
No
We
problem.
appreciate it. Anything further, Mr. Miller, that you want to add?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Looks like our future meeting subjects are paratransit services and the MPO, which stands for Metropolitan
Planning Organization. They've
uh,
actually changed their name.
The PSTA transfer area analysis. That sounds really.
So paratransit services are, otherwise known as DART, our contracts with Yellow Cab and Care Ride are reaching their 5-year end, and we are out to bid right now on getting new contractors to provide that service. We had, 5 proposers, and they're going through the process now. Care Ride and Yellow both submitted proposals, as well as 3 other firms. So that's what that presentation will be next month, I think. And then the
Meeting is, I was wondering, I represent DART on this board, but I want to talk at the board meeting, which is July 27th. Can I talk at the meeting?
Absolutely, of course, yeah. You can make public comment as an individual as well. Sure.
yeah, and that might be good.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I could talk about, I want to say good things about Care Ride.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I didn't know if it would be a conflict of interest, you know?
Well, it would be a good conflict of interest. It's a good thing.
And just so you know, I mean, I've made public comment a couple of times, and I just make it clear that I'm making a personal public comment as an individual rider, and that my views don't represent the track as a whole. That's all I do, and that way it sort of just makes it very clean cut. I do it, so.
And then this thing called MPO, PSA transfer analysis, that is the terminology that they are using. That's not necessarily what us riders and transit folks call it, but the Metropolitan Planning Organization is the organization in Pinellas County that oversees long-range transportation planning and land use planning. In fact, a group that I hope to get involved with this issue that Gloria, you brought up about developers being cognizant of providing accessible paths to their front
Rider
door.
safety in general, because all of us, pedestrians and people in wheelchairs, all of us getting off the bus need to have safe places to go, and hopefully the MPO.
So the MPO has hired some consultants that are looking at ways in which key locations around the county where major transit lines connect, the land use planning that the cities do around those areas might be designed to enhance the transit and vice versa. That higher densities of development would occur around places that we have good transit connections, and that the landscape be designed to foster easy use of the bus. So it's a interesting presentation that hopefully we'll get in the next month or two.
Quick question, I recall at some point in the past that there was question about going out for a bid on competition for the Jolly Trolley services.
Yes.
It seems like we are incorporating a lot based on the Jolly Trolley. Did we decide not to go out for bid on that? Or
No, that still is the plan.
Okay.
And the procurement will incorporate not only what you just recommended here as far as the enhanced service, but the ability for us to get quotes on what it would cost to expand it even further.
All right, anybody else wants to bring up? Issues to bring to the track? None. So saying, I think we consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
month on the 19th.
Happy Flag Day, everybody.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was my own. Not serving a portion of service